Quad66. I need to fly more. I've been spending so much time kind of tinkering and building and thinking about this HD0 build that my skills have gotten a little rusty. You'll probably see that here. But I wanted to do an update video here, talk about this build. This is sort of my kind of main candidate build for the HD0. And also show you an update of what I ended up doing with that Flywoo board. So this build is a 3-inch build. It's on a Warpig 122. It's on a 3mm frame, which is a little thinner than I like, but I think what we're going to have to do is make some compromises to keep the weight down. And I'm flying with the RCN Power 1204s, and these are the higher kV, the 8,000 or 7,500 kV, whatever it is, and flying on the tri-blade props, the Genplan 3016s. I'm flying with a smaller battery. This is the Tattoo R-Line 550s, and I'm using the smaller batteries because we want to have some overhead in terms of the weight, because we're going to be carrying the HD0, which is going to add quite a bit of weight. And so the idea here is basically the 3-inch prop is going to tolerate that weight a little bit better, and that's what we need, because I think on the smaller stuff it just might get overwhelmed a little bit by the weight. And so the idea here is to get a build that is still going to be plenty powerful, get just enough flight time, and not overwhelmingly heavy for the prop disc area. So the bigger the prop disc area, I think the more weight we can carry without it getting kind of like awkward and unruly and stuff like that. So this build here is not HD0 yet. The main reason for that is because, one, I haven't gotten my carbon fiber canopy cut yet. I've ordered it, so it should be on the way shortly. The other one is I'm waiting on the HD0 goggles, because I don't want to spend like the $200 on the module and then just turn around and buy the goggles in like a month or two. They should be coming out shortly, at least that's what they're posting. So that's kind of the wait or the delay here in terms of getting some actual HD footage. But in the meantime, I did want to show you, kind of like how we can fly this, fairly big footprint in sort of tight spaces. And I don't think that it's going to mind the little extra weight too much, but we'll see. We've got to build it up and try it at the end of the day and see how it turns out. In terms of flight time, I'm not targeting anything crazy here. You can see this is probably going to come in, let's see, 366. We'll probably get 4 minutes out of it, and my goal is only around 330. I'm doing that because I think that's just one of the places I'm willing to trade the most on, is a little bit of flight time to retain the best flight characteristics possible, because I don't want to lug around that heavy 720 battery and get a little bit extra flight time, but then have this thing that's just too big and clunky to fly in these tight spaces like I'm trying to show you here. So we got left flight time. Still got a little bit, so we'll get over 4 minutes, but I think once you add that extra little bit of weight, then it'll probably take, whatever it is going to be, like 30 seconds off the flight. And I think that's okay, because here, I'm getting pretty comfortably, and I'm not holding back on this flight. And we're 412, we still got a tiny bit of battery left. 49. I'll call it. It's like 422. Alright, let's land this. Let's go over to the bench. I'll walk you through this build. Also walk you through what I did with the with that Flywoo board. And so, alright, over to the bench. Alright, here's that Warpig that I was flying. So as I said, this is, the 3-inch, so this is a 122mm frame, and so I've got it built up as a 3-inch with RCN Power 1204s. And I've just got this printed canopy, so I'm getting this is cut, it should be hopefully on the way soon, in carbon fiber. And I've just got a Caddx Ant Light in there. But I've got this built up with that TuneRC Poly F405 board, and I did want to talk about that board a little bit because I've got some updates for you. One of those updates is that this is actually my second board, and the first board I got, I was noticing that two of the ESCs, the RPMs were just a little bit lower, not a huge amount, but enough to say that something wasn't quite right. And I've been in touch with TuneRC, and we weren't able to quite figure it out just, through Facebook, through the Facebook chat and stuff like that. So they actually paid a bunch of money for me to FedEx the board I had back to them so they could take a look. And what they figured out, I'm not going to be able to show it here, but there's these two little tiny diodes. One was just off a little bit and one had cracked. But they did figure out that that was what the issue was. And what really impressed me about that is, obviously I'm always a little disappointed if a product doesn't work exactly as, when it doesn't work perfectly out of the box. But I don't expect perfection, but what I'm really do like seeing is that they were really aggressive in getting that board back and not just saying, oh, that's within kind of like, the variability that you see in these products, or, oh, let's just trash that board and we'll send you a new one. No, they got the board back, they problem solved it, found the problem, and are using that information then to kind of like refine their process and make sure that further boards, as they put out more boards out there, that they're not going to be shipping with that problem. So that's when something's not right, that is the kind of like response to it, I think, that really shows that they're trying to do a good job. So good job to TuneRC on troubleshooting that, and that gives me a lot of confidence going forward that they're going to continue to keep putting out good products like we've seen from them in the past. So that's good. What's kind of interesting about that too is then I've had more opportunities to compare between the BMI 270 gyro and the MPU 6000. So this is that Flywoo board. It's listed as a 1 to 2S, but I couldn't get it to really work worth a darn on 1S. But it is actually, as so the other update here is on this board. But this actually turns out it's a very nice 2S board for light builds, especially if you're not tinkering with them. But I'll talk a little bit more about this one. But going between these two, I've captured now a whole bunch of black box logs, switching over, crossing boards over frames and back and forth and things like that. And honestly, in terms of how do the two gyros differ, noise-wise, I think to really show the difference in the noise, you'd have to do a setup where you put both boards on the same quad at the same time. Like, you'd have to do some kind of dual setup to really demonstrate the differences, because what I found is that they're close enough that when you're like switching things over flight to flight and all the rest of it, even if you're switching the board from one quad to the other, the gyros in terms of the noise are close enough to where those little itty-bitty differences are bigger than what I'm seeing from the gyro. So I take that overall as a good thing for the BMI 270, that it's, in terms of the noise, coming through that, I certainly don't think it's any lower quality than the MPU 6000. The only thing I'm seeing downside-wise on the BMI 270 is I'm getting just a little tiny bit more prop wash. I don't notice at all on some builds. Like this build here, it's not very prone to prop wash, and honestly I don't notice it at all. On some builds, like this, so on this lighter weight, these are the 1202.5s, flying with the GemFan 2512 props. These props are just really prone to prop wash, and so on this specific build, I am seeing a slight bit of difference between the MPU 6000 and the BMI 270, to where I'm getting a little bit more prop wash on the BMI 270. So the MPU 6000 is, I think, just because the speed you have in terms of the being, the sampling rate at 8K versus 3.2, I think. That 8K sampling rate, I think, does give you just a tiny bit of advantage in the prop wash. And so if you're really kind of in a build where that is critical, that MPU 6000 I think is superior. But what was the price difference? I think this is like $100 and this is like $70 or something like that. It's like, and I think Flywoo is charging like a 10% or a $10 premium for the MPU 6000 on top of the usual Flywoo premium. So if you're really wanting the MP6000, you can get it, and I think it's a good chip for, you know, a good driver for sure, but you're going to pay for it, and I think for a lot of people it's probably not worth it. So in terms of these boards, you know, they're overlapping boards in terms of what they can be used for, but they're clearly just different boards. The TuneRC board, the Poly F405, you know, as I've said before, this is a future-proof because you've got an F405 in there, and it's just a very nice board to build with. Here I've got it built up square because we're doing that for in anticipation of the throwing the HD0 VTX in there, and we need to mount it square to make room for it. But this is a really nice board to build with. It's got nice pads to solder to. There's nothing weird about it in terms of like the USB isn't coming up or down, it's pointing straight out. It's a nice board to build with. And for the amp rating that it has, it's very light. It's definitely lighter than some of the other boards with the same amp rating. Now, if you are building a weight sensitive build and you're not tinkering, this Flywoo board is actually pretty good, as long as you don't want to do 1S. If all you're doing is 2S and it's going to be a lightweight build, this Flywoo board, actually, my worries about it being an inefficient board because of my experience of this versatile board on 1S, I just found it just wasn't efficient. Maybe I got a bad board, but on this version of it, so this is the 1 to 2S with the F405, this board is great, and on this build it's excellent. So this build here, so this is a Warpig 114, and I'm building it with these 1202.5, 11,500 kV, and I'm flying it on 2S. Flying on the same R-Line 550 battery, but this build flies great, and I do like this board. And so this is kind of like a finished build. So if this USB port works for you, where it's pointed down, where is it? It's, yeah, I've got it pointed down underneath. If that works for you, then, you know, and you're only going to be soldering once, so soldering the motors on beforehand, and if you're not changing them out, the board's great. It's lightweight, it's working well for me. It's definitely pricey, but you got black box on there, you got everything you need. It's a lightweight package, and so for weight sensitive builds, I really like that board. But it is not a workhorse board. You know, in terms of like testing stuff, trying things out, TuneRC board is definitely the workhorse board. Plus you've got the options to go 3S, you got the option to go 4S. So, you know, you've got this really niche, this Flywoo board is just a super niche board. But if that's your niche, go for it. This one's working well for me. So, I think that's what I have for updates. It's kind of what I wanted to cover with these. I've got the carbon fiber cage coming very shortly, so I'm excited to kind of build that up and see what it is. It's going to gain some weight, and hopefully by the time we're done adding weight with the HD0, it's still a fun quad to fly. Hope so. I guess the one other thing I want to try on here is, so I've been flying with the 3016 props. I want to try this also with a couple other props. One is dropping down to 2.5 inch props with the Avan Rush, see how those are. The other props I need to get a hold of are, I've got the GitHub 2.5 inch props coming, and I do want to try this also on the GemFan 3 inch tri-blades that have a little more pitch. I think it's like a 3023 or 3028, something like that. I gotta find those and get those over, because that might be interesting with a slightly higher pitch prop, especially if we're adding weight to this. That might work out well, but we'll see. All right, till next time, cheers.